come live in Michigan's Best, and we have another Cocktails with Bob. We've got Bob Fish here from BIGGBY Coffee. And Bob, I love doing these cocktails with you. They're always so much fun. And this time, we're gonna make a drink that people could actually give as a gift for the holiday season, right?
That's right, yep.
Well, I'm super excited because we're gonna make homemade Kahlua.
We're gonna make homemade Kahlua. So, I mean, this is Kahlua, and we're gonna rip that off, is what we're gonna do, you know? And I mean, otherwise, we would just call that a coffee liqueur, right? That's what we're after here.
Okay, so we don't use any brand names here. We're gonna just, yes, a coffee liqueur featuring, of course, BIGGBY Coffee, which is what we're using in this one. Now, Bob, we have several selections of BIGGBY today to choose from to use as our base. What do you recommend people select for this?
Right, and you know, we've done a lot of science on this, and we've tested both of our farm direct coffees, BIGGBY Best and Living Hope. And actually, we like it best with Living Hope. That's the better of the two. Both are great, but this produces just an amazing product. So today we're going to be using Living Hope.
What is it about Living Hope that you think really lends itself to this application?
Yeah, right. So the Living Hope coffee, it's roasted a little bit darker than the BIGGBY Best, so that's a little bit of a plus. But then also, the BIGGBY Best is a little floral and a little citrusy, and that's not bad. But this is a little more earthy in its application and berry-like. And we just think when all these ingredients get married together, this one just does a little bit better job. Okay,
I love it. Well, let's get started on the process. And while we're making the syrup and the infused rum, we can learn a little bit more about the Living Hope story, because I think it's a good one. So let's get started on the process for our homemade coffee liqueur.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of jump ahead, what we're going to do is we're going to produce two things. We're going to produce a coffee syrup, and we're going to produce a rum infusion, right? And so those are the two things, and then we're going to blend those together to make the liqueur. Ooh. So let me start with the infusion, and you know, I use a very traditional 4-cup mason jar, ball jar, that kind of thing. And we're going to get all kinds of ingredients in there, right? And the kinds of ingredients that we're going to get in here are very complementary to coffee. And it might even be words that you would use to describe the way a coffee tastes. Okay. That's so
a good point. Yeah.
We're going to start by getting all those dry ingredients in. And you know, really the most complicated one and one of the best ones is a vanilla bean.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful. So just going to go ahead and slice a vanilla bean, you know, right down the flat side of it. And then we're going to pull it apart a little bit. And our objective here is to scrape out the seeds, just like that, and get it in our mason jar. And we're going to scrape as much as we can get out and get that in there. And then we're just going to throw the whole thing in anyway. All right.
Because you might as well.
So vanilla is very complementary to coffee, but the other thing that is too is cocoa. And so I have some organic cocoa nibs here, and this is about 2 teaspoons. And then the other thing that's complementary to coffee is coffee. And so I have 20 coffee beans here, and I got a little mortar and pestle in front of me. I'm going to put those in the mortar and pestle and crush them in just a minute. I've got some sliced almonds. I'm going to get that in the jar. I've got 5 hazelnuts. Hazelnut goes really well with coffee. And I've got an orange. Citrus and orange go really well with coffee also. And I'm just going to take about a 1-inch piece of orange here, get it in there.
I love how precise you are with all these ingredients.
I have to be, right? Otherwise they get too overpowering. I have a 1/2 stick of cinnamon. I have, let's see, it's about 10 golden raisins. You could use not golden raisins, that'd be fine too. I have 1 sliced dry apricot.
I thought that was an interesting addition to apricot.
Well, apricot's very floral, right? And yeah, and I've got 5 peppercorns going to get that in the mortar and pestle. I've got just some 3 allspice berries. Going to put that in the mortar and pestle. And then I've got a nutmeg here that I'm just going to shave off a little bit, just like 2 cuts on that, and get that in there too. Take the items that are in my mortar and pestle and not grind them fine, just sort of break them.
Just kind of let them release their natural oils there.
That's right. A little more surface area, but not too much. We don't want all kinds of fines and stuff in there. All right. And then, of course, we have all of our ingredients in there. We're just going to take rum, and I'm using a local rum by New Holland Brewery, and it's an amber rum, not a clear rum. I'm going to fill up to the 4-cup mark. Actually, you could fill higher if you wanted to. That would be okay. And I ran out, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to take it all the way up to right there.
About 4 cups of rum, right? Close to 4 cups of rum.
4 cups of rum does the trick. I mean, this is what it will produce in the end.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to let that sit for 18, 24, 36 hours, something like that. But if we let it go past 24 hours, we want to take out that orange peel, right? Because it'll just be way too much citrus in there.
Too overpowering. Now, Bob, I would really love to see the schedules you put together when you're brewing up one of these concoctions. How you take, I know you taste it periodically to see when it's correct. You're constantly making another batch and adding or subtracting something. Or how do you keep track of all of this? How did you know that it's supposed to be 10 raisins?
Well, first, I take a lot of long walks, right? And I dream up the ingredients on those walks, what I think it's going to be, right? And then I start doing it, right? And I add one ingredient at a time, and I see how that influences until we sort of build up this complex flavor profile. And that's just like coffee. Coffee is also a very complex flavor profile.
Good point. Okay, we've got our rum. It's been stewing for up to 36 hours, and it's ready to roll. Then we're going to make the coffee syrup, right, Bob? That's right, the coffee syrup. And that's a little bit of work and a little bit of complexity. But basically, we're talking about water, sugar, and coffee, right? And so we just want to start first by making the syrup. And it's something very close to a simple syrup. And I'm going to do this in milliliters. You ask how I keep my notes. I keep my notes on a coffee filter. I do that. That'll be no shock to anybody here. And when a recipe doesn't work out, I just throw away the coffee filter. But I've got some water on the boil here, and that's 3/4 of a liter or 750 milliliters. And to that, we're going to add sugar. And we're going to add a lot of sugar. We're going to add 900 milliliters of sugar. And so this bowl is full of Michigan sugar. All right, love Michigan sugar. Now, what I would love to say that we're going to do is we're just going to add a little bit at a time and not let the temperature drop too much. But for the purposes of this episode, we're just going to pour it all in. And we would want to dissolve all this sugar. That's the objective. And the way that we're going to know that it's dissolved is 2 ways. One, when it's done dissolving, the liquid will be completely clear, right? And we're using a whisk, and we're going on the sides because we don't want any crystals to remain. We don't want recrystallization to occur. And we're going to keep stirring and stirring. And as that comes back to the boil, we never want it really to reach a boil. We want to just see bubbles coming off the bottom of the pan through the clear liquid. And we want to stir that for about 2 minutes. Okay? And once that's done, we need to get our coffee in. And our coffee, with the simple syrup, Bob, we're not trying to achieve a certain boil point or a certain temperature. We're just looking for all the sugar to be dissolved. That's right. To cook it for the 2 minutes. You got it. You don't need a candy thermometer for this necessarily or anything like that. You're just looking for it to be clear and to have been on that very low simmer for 2 minutes. That's it. So nothing tricky.
The thing that we got to add now is the coffee, and I'm going to use the Living Hope coffee. And this is a 12-ounce bag, and a 12-ounce bag is just a tish more than the 900 milliliters that needs to go in. So the sugar was 900 milliliters, the coffee's 900 milliliters, the water's 750 milliliters. I'm going to put that into a bowl.
I'll put that recipe up in our post on unlive.com as well. So if you are
Perfect.
following along and you want to do this at home, we'll have the complete recipe up there for you.
Now, what I have left in this bag is just enough to make a pot of coffee. So, you know, at some point you can take a break and brew up a pot and you'll be good. Now, what's important here, I got to give this a stir. What's important here is this coffee is very dry. And if we put this coffee in dry, it's going to absorb all the water that we put in there, and there won't be any syrup left over, right? So what we have to do is take 300 milliliters, 400 milliliters, somewhere in there, and pour that on the coffee, and then turn it until it's the consistency of wet sand. Okay, so our objective here is to get every ground wet and damp. And so there'll be no standing water when we're done. And if you were stirring this here with me, you would think that this is like a chocolate batter or something. But the other thing that I would note is the aroma is just whoosh like that. And it's really quite awesome.
I thought this was probably the most interesting thing I learned from this process.
Well, the other interesting thing is, you know, when we brew coffee or we do a pour over, this is something we do too with hot water. And we do it for about 30 seconds, and it's called blooming the coffee. Because the other thing that happens when we wet this coffee down is that CO2 begins to be released. And that's really a good thing for a finished product. So often we wet our coffee before we extract our coffee. And even in the espresso process, there is something called pre-infusion that happens. And pre-infusion is just pre-wetting the coffee. So we want the coffee to be fully hydrated before we start extracting from it, right? Gotcha. Okay, we've got our sugar and water, our simple syrup. It's a little heavier than a simple syrup, on a very light boil, a simmer. And we're just gonna put these coffee grounds straight in.
Now, Bob, tell us a little bit about Living Hope Coffee and why this is such a special blend for BIGGBY.
Yeah, this is one of our farm direct coffees, and our farm direct coffees all have three characteristics to them. One, they're treating people right, so they're either taking care of their farm workers very well, or they're paying them very well. The second thing that happens is they're treating the planet right, so the coffee is being produced in a manner that is sustainable. And then the third thing is that we're looking for a farmer that is doing something for their community, not something that we bring to them, but something that they're doing for their community. In the case of Living Hope Coffee, which Living Hope is located in Ndola, Zambia. And by the way, we have to just keep stirring this, and we're going to stir this for 4 minutes. Not in this show, but when you get to this, you're going to be stirring it for 4 minutes, okay? But these guys run an orphanage, and they take children from the rural areas that have lost their parents to AIDS or to alcoholism, and they take them at the age of 6, and they take them all the way through high school. They educate them, they love them, they feed them. And then the objective is to place them in university in Zambia, right? So to prevent sort of that brain drain thing that happens out there. So this is not just an amazing coffee and coffee profile. When you drink this coffee, you know the planet's been done right, you know people have been treated right, and that there's something great going on in their community. And you know, BIGGBY Coffee supports people in building a life they love. And we're doing that with our coffee farmers too.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
So, okay, we have again light simmered this for 4 minutes. And the magic of 4 minutes is that's about the time it takes to do a drip coffee. That's about the time that it takes to do a pour over. And if you extract much more on coffee than that, it becomes over extracted. So very quickly, after it's been simmering for 4 minutes, not boiling, you don't want to boil coffee, we're going to strain it. And the first strain would be through a sieve, just like this. And we want to do that right away, get those grounds out of contact with the simple syrup. And then we're going to strain again. Now I use a metal coffee filter into my Chemex, but you could stay with the sieve type strainer and use cheesecloth or something like that. And then I do a final strain through a coffee filter. Okay. Because if we don't do those 3 filters, there's going to be a lot of coffee fines in the syrup, and we don't want that. Okay. So now we've just shown you how to make coffee syrup, and we've shown you how to make a rum infusion.
And now we mix them together, right, Bob?
Now we mix them together. That's right.
To make our coffee liqueur.
Make your coffee liqueur. And, you know, we talked about this before, and as you know, we do a lot of sampling and back and forth and that kind of thing. So the rum starts off at 40% alcohol, right? And for a liqueur, you want it to be somewhere between 15 and 20%, okay? And what we found with the Living Hope, the perfect combination is at 20%. So what that allows us to do is it's a 50-50 ratio. That'll bring the alcohol content down to 20%, and it's the perfect marrying of the 2 flavors.
Okay.
So now we have some nice 500 milliliter bottles, and in the end, we'll have a label on here because we are talking about this being a Christmas gift. And we are shipping this to friends and family side by side. A little piece of something there, side by side. So they'll have something to celebrate with, and then they'll have something to perk themselves up with the next day.
That is a great gift idea. I love it because it's something homemade, and I think this year more than ever people would appreciate.
Oh, for sure. I mean, spending a little time. This doesn't, as you can tell, this doesn't take very long to do.
No, not at all. It's surprisingly quick.
It's surprisingly quick. So I'm going to get in this bottle, I'm going to do 250 milliliters plus 250 milliliters.
Okay, and I'm measuring.
And I would wash this bottle out with a little vodka ahead of time.
Okay.
And you can drink that vodka afterwards if you want, but the idea is to sterilize the bottle. But if you don't want to put it to waste, you can always do a little cook's sampling, as they say.
Quick sampling of my sanitized vodka.
Yeah. Well, it will be sanitized when you drink it. So, all right, another 250.
It's a thick and no, I don't want to say thick, but it is kind of thick. It's viscous, this liquid.
Oh, it's very syrupy. Now the thing here to know and remember is that after you combine these ingredients, I mean, you can close it up and give it a shake and pour yourself some, but it won't be quite mature yet.
Right.
And the longer these 2 ingredients are together, the more subtle the flavors will be with each other. And so we test it every day. It's an absolute obligation. But we notice as time goes by, and sort of the magic point is 7 days. After 7 days, it's mature in the bottle and it's ready to send. Okay.
You gotta do this 7 days before the holidays, but I'm gonna try it right now.
It's really good.
Oh, Bob, that is good. Wow, yummy. I can see why you have to taste it every day.
Yeah, no, we feel like we must do that.
I agree. Well, and we were just talking about that. In addition to, of course, giving it as a gift, you can keep it in your own house and make a variety of cocktails out of it.
That's right. And, you know, we do date night cocktails and we love doing those. And obviously when we're done with all this, we're going to start moving into doing some date night cocktails with our coffee liqueur. Okay. And, you know, the most common one that people know is a white Russian, but there's also a black Russian, and there's an espresso martini that can be made with these. And so there's a lot of fun that can be had with them. But I thought for the purposes of this show, we would just do a white Russian really quickly.
I totally agree. I'm all ready, Bob.
Okay, okay. Well, the ingredients you need, of course, are ice. You need some kind of rocks glass. You need 2 ounces of vodka. You need 2 ounces of cream. And you need 1 ounce of your coffee liqueur.
Okay, now I forgot my vodka, so hold on, Bob. You get started.
Okay. And so while you're gone, I'll just mention we're using the Michigan vodka. It's Long Road vodka. So you know, really trying to stick with all Michigan ingredients on this.
Okay, got my vodka.
And generally, you would just fill up your rocks glass with ice.
And see, for once, I totally beat Bob because I used my coffee ice cubes.
We love coffee ice cubes. First ingredient to go in would be your 2 ounces of vodka. Second ingredient to go in would be your coffee liqueur.
And you said that's 1 ounce of coffee liqueur?
1 ounce, yep. Now, you know, it's all this is to taste. So I see recipes that are even 2 ounces of vodka, 2 ounces of coffee liqueur, right? So, but the absolute standard recipe is 2 to 1 on the vodka to coffee liqueur. And then on top, you would take a heavy cream and you would sort of drizzle that on top and let it marry together. And you might give your glass a little bit of a shake, but you can see the coffee liqueur settles to the bottom and it becomes a very pretty drink.
Yours is prettier, a little bit prettier than mine. Mine's a little chunky.
Well, I've had a little more practice, but I will say cheers to you.
Cheers. And of course, with the white Russian, you have to say, the dude abides.
The dude abides. That's right. Happy holidays.
I always think a white Russian is like a boozy milkshake.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's totally a dessert in a glass, you know? Like if you wanted to get somebody started drinking alcohol, this is where you would start.
That's how you do it. Well, I would be happy to share this with you any day, Bob Fish. I think it's delicious. And I love the technique and I love the idea of making something homemade for the holidays to give this year.
Me too.
All right. Well, if people want to get more information about BIGGBY Coffee, maybe they want to purchase some of the Living Hope, where should they go, Bob?
Well, they can buy BIGGBY coffee on BIGGBY.com. They can do it on Amazon.com. They can go to their the local BIGGBY operator store and buy it there too. But if they buy it online, 3% of that sales goes into a fund for the owner operators too. So it wouldn't be jipping them out if they didn't go to the location.
That's good to know. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Bob Fish from BIGGBY Coffee. We appreciate you making cocktails with us, and we love this idea of making your homemade coffee liqueur. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
All right, if you guys want to get the full recipe, you want to head to mlive.com.